Question number 8 in the name of Deputy Broughan.
Thanks, Can. Well, we certainly have seen very few of those units on the north side of Dublin. We heard earlier, I think, in the debate that there's something like 3,600 families and individuals on the Wexford housing list. As you know, Ken Corley, we've almost doubled that number in Dublin Bay North between our two counties. And of the 750 families in emergency accommodation and the 1,600 children, many of those are our families and our children. I can just ask the Minister specifically, you sent us over last week, or the two ministers, you sent us over the Planning and Development Urgent Social Housing Supply Policy Directive 2015 in relation to Section 179 and in relation to Part 8. Why didn't the two of you do that 18 months ago?
Minister.
Thanks, Deputy. Deputy, I'm fully committed to dealing with homelessness. It is my #1 priority, and I don't say that in a glib way before you respond. I genuinely mean that. It is a top priority, and there's a necessity to focus at the moment on providing suitable emergency accommodation for families and also obviously for children. The biggest issue is also in relation to rough sleepers locally, in particularly an issue in Dublin and other cities. And as you know, the Winter Ready programme I announced yesterday with the excellent work of Cathal Morgan and his team in the Dublin Housing Homeless Unit. We are fully committed, and we have made various different action plans, as you're aware, comprehensive action plans. And I would ask the Deputy, if you went down through the action plans, you would see that by and large, virtually every one of them was executed, and substantial progress has been made on these plans. Progress updates on all of these are brought on a monthly basis to the Cabinet Subcommittee on Social Policy and Public Service Reform. Given the massive amount of work that's ongoing, and it's ongoing on a weekly and daily basis, I'm not going to go through the various different 50 actions, but many of them have been very successful. The ministerial direction, which I presume you supported, whereby we have increased to 50% for people who are homeless or vulnerable allocation policy, has been quite successful. The whole issue in relation to public awareness campaigns, the whole work in relation to threshold, and the whole possibility of pushing up rent supplement and intercepting people who are vulnerable is working quite well. The rollout of the HAP, the changes in relation to the HAP for homeless households in Dublin as well, I think are very necessary. The issue here is that collectively there are so many different measures which are required to meet the needs of people who are becoming homeless. Everyone who's becoming homeless has complex needs. They have complex needs either on a personal level or from an economic situation that they find themselves in. And we're putting together measures across the whole range of them.
Thanks for that, but their first need is a house, is housing. That's what they need. When will you actually come into the House and make an announcement about rent certainty? I mean, when I called for rent controls about 4 years ago, there was immediately howls of protest from Fianna Fáil and indeed later on from Fine Gael. The two parties worked hand in hand down through the years in relation to development and in relation to rent, and are there representing landlords' interests. That's the problem, and that's the problem about the Labour. That's the reality. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, the Iron Alliance.
This is question time. Would you put your question?
Well, I'm saying, when will we have an announcement? And as you know, Senator Aideen Hayden has done a lot of work on thresholds in this matter. So when are you going to come in and make an announcement? You didn't answer the question about the planning and development urgent social housing supply directive, which I read very carefully. Now, is that saying to the county councils, city councils, get your act together and start delivering? Is that what that's saying in relation to Part 8 and in relation to Section 179? And you should have sent that out 18 months ago. And just a very brief point on the modular homes.
I'll let you back in again.
Thanks.
Well, Deputy, I have very firm conversations with all local authorities, and yes, I am saying to them all the time on a continuous basis. In fact, I meet them so regularly. I met with them only a couple of weeks ago again, and before that I met with them only a couple of weeks ago on top of that. And I met with all the CEOs, and where necessary I met with their Director of Housing. And in fact, myself and Minister Coffey and Minister Phelan, where necessary, have gone out and met local authorities and absolutely emphasised that this is our #1 priority. Provision of social housing and facilitating private housing where necessary, obviously, and particularly in areas where we have real issues, is absolutely the #1 priority. I can't make it any clearer than that. And yes, I accept that you have to build houses. I'm doing everything I can to build houses. There is a planning process, which, where necessary, I've given instructions that I can do. But we also have a planning process there for a reason, and that has to be gone through.
Thank you.
In relation, I'll come back in again. I'll come back in again.
Yeah, well, just in relation to he sent us over the document, you read it as well, Can. What is the exact implications of that? And quite clearly, 18 months ago, when we had a discussion on the last day of the Dáil about housing policy, you could have taken the line of equipping the local authorities with the funding, the capital funding needed to launch a social housing programme. That's what Jimmy Tully, your predecessor, that's what he done, and came in year after year, and we did it, as Fintan O'Toole says, in the poorest decades. We built tens of thousands of local authority homes. You come from one of them, I come from one of them, many of the rest of us come from them, and it's sustained our families. And it's not being done now because of the influence of Fine Gael and government and the previous influence of Fianna Fáil in ending the social housing programme.
Thank you.
So I just ask that and just say very briefly, I went to the modular housing exhibition in North Strand. We had the implication then that this is something very stopgap, just a very emergency housing for families, for people in emergency housing accommodation. Now we're being told that these units have a lifespan of 60 years, of 6 decades. So are we going to create another problem rather than giving us the bricks and mortars homes, which we need?
Sorry, Deputy, would you please?
18 months ago, tens of thousands of them, and you haven't delivered, Minister, unfortunately.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah, we need it on 20 and 25 years. But when you were in government, I was calling for it then too. Yeah, exactly. I voted against you.
Look at.
Yeah, I
I'm
voted
sorry,
against you.
You've run out of time for your questions, so I'm moving on to the next question. I'm sorry, the time is up.